1380 KCIM Sports presents KCIM Sports Rewind. A look back at the week in high school sports. Brought to you by St. Anthony Rehab Services. Here's Sports Director Jeff Blankman, John Ryan, and Jeff Honnold.
Well, let's welcome everybody into the frigid confines of the KCIM studio this morning, the frozen tundra.
Feels like Blankman must have ran the controls.
Well, I was going to say, no, there are icicles hanging from the ceiling.
If he were running the controls, it would be retirement home hot.
You're right. We'd all
be sitting here topless, and nobody wants
No.
So,
man, there's images, dude.
Now, to prove a point here, we're live streaming this on Facebook right now. So, hi, everybody out there on Facebook. Wave, everybody wave. And it is cold in here. We've got Chelsea and Jason tucked down in the corner so they can stay off the camera. We're going to have Chelsea jump out here because she is dressed appropriately for for the conditions here in the KCIM studio.
Do the cameras need to be cold to work, or what's the deal here?
I hate a warm studio. I mean, Blankman and I are like total opposites.
Yes, you are.
When it comes to this. I mean, he comes in and cranks up the heat all the time. I turn it down all the time.
But see, the Swedish one is you get hot first, you jump into something cold, not cold to hot. That's kind of backwards there, John.
You're like doing math on me here early. Stop that.
I've been up a while.
I'm not using my brain right now. It's a rewind for crying out loud.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's stop that thinking stuff right now.
Yeah, 30 minutes of just kind of open the mind and not let anything in, right?
It's a free flow of information, which should scare a lot of people out there. All right, first, I want to talk about Iowa, Nebraska. You're sporting the colors this morning.
The colors on.
You got the Hawkeyes on.
I knew it was going to be cold. This is one of my warmest pullovers. So
Jeff's wearing his Nebraska blue this morning for some reason.
So. I had Husker stuff on yesterday.
All right, well, you probably...
Saturday and Sunday.
Where did you get blue? I don't think I've ever seen you in blue.
Well, I had to be neutral today.
Welcome to the fashion report on Rewind here this morning.
But,
so Kirk Ferentz gets criticized for going for it on a fourth down late in the game. And then he got criticized all season for being too conservative, and he goes for it, and he still gets criticized.
Can't make Hawkeye fans happy. That's all I'm going to say.
At this year, I don't think he was conservative. That's a couple times now he went for it, and rather than taking the points, which is very un-Kirk-like. I was okay with it. At 35-13, you make that touchdown, that game's pretty much over. I think Nebraska folds up the tent. You miss it, they make a drive. I thought they got a little conservative there in the fourth, trying to let their defense just kind of control things and win it that way. But then, again, when they needed it, went for it on fourth down and got it. So, I mean, would I like to see him beat Nebraska a lot harder? Absolutely. It's still a win. It's hard for me to say that. I always love watching a team play great, and it's hard when I see a bunch of mistakes. But a win's a win, and I'm not comfortable looking forward. If you look at this team and look at what Nebraska's going to be in the next few years, and they made a big step.
My second question after watching that one is how hard was the weeping at your house when Nebraska got beat in the last-second field goal?
I was here, so the weeping here was not real great.
I thought I could hear it from my house.
Yeah, but I don't think I threw too many things. I don't think I broke anything in here that you guys have found yet.
Nope. You cleaned up well then.
No, to be honest with you, I had told Honnold last Tuesday that they were going to probably gut us because the weakness in Nebraska this year is up front on both sides of the ball, and especially defensively. And the strength for me for Iowa every single year is that they're physical, and I knew they'd come out and just run downhill on us. If Michigan State would have done the same thing, I think Michigan State would have beaten us, but they didn't. And I just didn't feel good about that matchup with Iowa. Now, ask me in 3 years, once we've had a chance to actually lift some weights again over there in Lincoln and get stronger, and it might be a better football game, but we'll have to wait and see.
Maybe they should talk to the volleyball team there.
Yeah, they might win.
Well,
have them work out with the volleyball team. They seem to be winning a lot.
It's just amazing that they, Mike Riley didn't believe in squatting, and their weight guy didn't believe in squatting. They hadn't squatted in 3 years. You're not a very strong football team if you don't do any kind of squatting.
I was with a guy that was doing the Yahoo Pick'em, where you have 23 teams, and he said he took Iowa in the points. And, no, you always take Iowa as the underdog, you win every time. If you take Kirk in points, you're going to be in trouble. He thought he was in trouble, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter came in, and he ended up covering. But, we've gone to Vegas. I don't know how many times we've done it. If I see Iowa as an underdog, I'll take him because he'll usually cover that side, but he rarely covers on the top side.
Yeah, and they were 10-10.5, I think, going into the game, if I remember right. So,
all right, let's not leave out the Iowa State fans. How about the number of people that left Jack Trice Stadium when they went down by 17 to Kansas State and then come back to win? I was almost one of those ready to check out of the ball game, but
I have checked out.
And I think for Iowa State, that's got to be disappointing because they've really prided themselves over the last few years since Campbell has got there of being a great fan base, and to leave early like that, it's got to probably, I don't know if the players or anybody like that noticed, but it certainly seemed like the TV cameras were really focusing in on the fact that people were filing out of the stadium.
Well, if you look at even Iowa, I think all of them had trouble that weekend. You've got students are gone, so that gives you that bad look anyway. And then, your top corners were empty. Late night, cold, down 17. I can understand it, but boy, what about Campbell's another one of those that I really worry about. I think that guy is going to...
Everybody worried about him going to Ohio State. He might end up in Cleveland or some other NFL team because there's a lot of NFL teams that are now all of a sudden his name is popping up in potential coaching searches.
He's a very good teacher.
Yes. What do you think the over-under is for attendance this Saturday? Light rain, light snow, upper to 30 degrees, something like that. Drake and Iowa State. Iowa State's a 42.5-point favorite.
I think you're going to see a good crowd until half.
Yeah, I think they'll fill it early on because I think people, it's kind of the nostalgia of, Drake and Iowa State playing each other. You'll even have some Drake fans drive up to the game if they can get some tickets, I'm sure. I think it'll be full or almost full early on, and then as the game maybe gets completely out of hand, which it probably will, then it'll start to thin out pretty quick.
Yeah, I think you'll see your tailgate, your normal Saturday morning tailgate, last tailgate of the year. Heck, we're here, let's go ahead and go in, and then as they start to get cold, they'll go back and try to get some more antifreeze in them, and then maybe not come back.
I'll be conveniently parked at my couch in my house, so kind of nice and warm over there.
I hate to put it this way, but maybe the Iowa State fan base of the 80s when there was more people out tailgating at game time than there was inside the stadium.
Boy, I don't know if you've gone lately, but there's still a lot of people that don't go in the game.
Oh, I know, but at least the stadium's full. At least the stadium's full on Saturdays. I lived up in Ames for most of the 90s and was there a lot in the 80s, and man, there was days where you'd have 80,000 people out tailgating and 5,000 of them would find their way into the stadium.
They tailgate and the game happened to be going on beside them. So anyway, I got to ask you about the Nebraska-Iowa game.
And for the record, there was no texting, no smart comments back and forth. I just let it go. I texted you about something at work, I think.
Yeah, I actually, Iowa fans were pretty quiet to me this week. So
shocking.
Yeah, well, when you win on a last-second field goal, it's kind of hard to... I know they've won 4 in a row, but when you win on a last-second field goal, it's kind of hard to be too, pounding on your chest too much. So...
All right, so I had to bring that one up, but let's talk about basketball. That's going right now. Of course, just getting into the girls-boys varsity doubleheaders last night, but we've had a few games lately. Let's talk about some of those games right now.
Yeah, we'll start off. We've got a big matchup tonight. Carroll against Kemper up at Kemper tonight. Huge city rivalry matchup, of course, and bragging rights on the line, and I think it's going to be interesting. The girls have both played a game now.
What's different this year about the matchup than in years past?
Well, Kemper doesn't have quite the size advantage that what they've had. They still have a size advantage with Kara Peter, but with no Amy Adams, you don't have two girls that are 6'2", 6'3", towering inside. Carroll was the younger team the last several years. They're still probably a young team, but Kemper's now got a little more youth added into that, and Carroll's actually got more experience now because those young players have all got a year or 2 or 3 now under their belt.
And Carroll's probably deeper. With experienced players, so you can maybe do the 6 in 6 out or 5 in 5 out 6 in 6. Five in 5 out type of thing, and try to wear teams down as well.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, and Carroll hasn't played now in over a week. Played last Monday and went down and got that win over Atlantic, and then they've had now a week to kind of tweak things and look at things that they didn't do right that night and try to get better at those.
Well, they had the pride scrimmage,
right? Yeah, but that's it's not a full actual game. And then Kemper, they just played last night, so it's that quick turnaround. They've got to try and fix the things. They played okay last night, but got outscored 18-11 in the fourth quarter to end up losing that game by 1. So they've got to mentally rebound from that, and you don't have that time to kind of focus in on things that you need to work on.
So as a coach, what would you rather have? You play last night, don't have time to fix things in practice, or last time you played really was a week ago?
I don't know. For me, I think I'd have rather rather have played last week. I don't know if I'd have rather have played on Monday, but I'd rather have played last week. Now, having that pride scrimmage, last week certainly probably did help them out. So,
we always say you make that biggest jump from the first game to the next game. Well, that's if you have practice. Unless they do some, and they can make some changes, and you'll see some things, but. You definitely want to have a chance to just, hey, let's look at the film. This is what we did. Let's go through a little walkthrough here and feel.
You want to be able to fine-tune your defense a little bit, your offense, things like that, make those changes. It's tough to do in a huddle, in a 30-second timeout or a minute timeout.
Yeah, and it's tough to do overnight. I did the Audubon South Central Calhoun matchups last night, and I asked Coleman Mullenix after, in the postgame last night for Audubon on the South Central Calhoun game, and I said, you got IKM Manning coming up tomorrow night. I said, what do you do to get ready? And he goes, we game plan on the bus on the way home tonight. That's what they were doing. They were handing out the game plan and going over the game plan last night on the bus trip home. That's not an easy thing to do.
No, you got to have the kids on board, on the same page, ready to go to hand them that. But give me some advantages for each team tonight. What do you see as the difference, and what is going to need to happen for Kemper to be successful, and what's going to need to happen for Carroll to be successful?
For me, I think Kemper's got to get some kind of an inside game established with Kara Peter, and then be able to kick out to shooters, and got to get Macy Overmore going early. Brooklyn Backey's got to be able to get to the rim and knock down some shots. I think for Carroll, it's getting the tempo up and down. They want to run. They want to try and wear them out. It's using their depth. It's being able to get to the rim, get to the free throw line, and create turnovers. They want to harass Kemper, I think, all night long and try to get them to turn the ball over.
I think Kemper's going to need to get space.
Yeah,
they're going to need to be able to pass the ball, create a lot of space so that Backey can cut. Carroll, it'll be interesting. You got some young players in the middle, and it's a different style. They're more of take it hard to the rim, less finesse, good touch. But Carroll's going to be more of a try to beat you with size and kind of finesse it up there. So. Right now, I think Carroll. If I had to pick some, I think Carroll's going to probably try to run them and wear them down. And it's early in the season. I don't know if Kemper taking that long volleyball run has got into basketball shape yet. It's a big difference. So if Carroll gets out and gets their run game going, I think Kemper's going to be pretty tired by the end of the night.
And the conditioning is one thing I've heard a lot of the coaches talking about. It's been a struggle getting teams into shape this year. Love to get the sport of volleyball, but it's not one that gets you in condition to run up and down the floor all night long. And so it's a hard transition, I think, sometimes for the kids.
Let's talk about the co-head coaches for Carroll High. You don't see this in basketball very often. No. How is it still working out for Carroll High?
I think they love it. When I talked with Nate and Mark for the preseason.
By the way, Nate surprised me in the grocery store the other day, and I called him by the wrong name, and then I yelled at him for surprising me too much. I was like, wait a minute, you can't jump out at me like that.
Did you call him Brian or something?
I think I called him Mark or something like that, and I corrected it later on. I said, I'm in the middle of Thanksgiving shopping. Don't come up to me like that.
Were you in the alcohol aisle?
No.
He had been there.
I went immediately there afterwards.
Sampling.
Yes. No, I think they really
I was in
like
the store for 5 hours. I don't know.
Got lost.
Lonnie's got a lot of video of it.
And none of it good.
Yeah, but, they really like it. They talked about the fact that, Mark's still in charge of the defense, Nate's still in charge of the offense. They've done this now. This is the third year where they'd be full head coaches, so it'd be about 2.5 years coming into this where they've been the co-head coaches. They've started to finish each other's sentences because they're around each other enough. They know what each other's thinking. Mark brought up things of, like one of them can be in the weight room focusing on one thing, the other one can be in the weight room focusing on the other thing. Same things at practice. You don't have to have one guy or assistants trying to do it. You've got two head coaches that can really focus on things. I think they really, really like it.
To me, they're on the same page. Yeah, I think those two have been, since they've started this, they've brought that thing. The team was in trouble when they got them, and I think they've brought them a long way. I don't know how far they can go with this coach thing. I mean, it's just one of those, like you talked about, it's not something that happens, but these two make it work, and it seems like it's working pretty well, and they're on the same page with it. At least they're not fighting and trying to go different directions.
Well, didn't I hear you right in the preview show that East Sac County's also done this?
Yeah, they have. Sherry Crabb's kind of the co-head coach with Mike. I think Mike Fisher has probably more of the role there.
The long-time head coach, Mike Fisher.
Yeah, absolutely, as the head coach. But, they've kind of done the dual head coach thing.
We'll have to wait and see how that all works out in their thing. Maybe we see more of this in the future. Maybe we don't. I don't know.
you never know with it being hard for people to find coaches, and especially coaches that are in a school district and stuff. It's getting more and more difficult to find coaches every day.
The time commitment and all of the other stuff off the court that has to happen. Maybe it works out for them.
It's a full year-round job anymore. You don't get a chance to get off seasons, and you don't get a chance to really coach other sports much because you're having to be so focused on the one sport, and you got all the. You hate to say it, but you got all the yelling and the screaming and the upset and the frustration that comes in from the outside that you're never doing anything right, and stuff. So that makes it even more difficult.
Sounds like
for
one of our
coaches
staff
to want
meetings.
to stick around. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all the screaming and yelling, the good cop, bad cop stuff. Well, that happens a lot around here. All right, we're going to talk about boys basketball. We're going to talk about that Carroll Kemper matchup and some of the games that have happened over the last week or so. That's coming up next on KCIM Sports Rewind.
Programs, call St. Anthony Rehab Services. Our staff of therapists and trainers provide professional advice on treatment programs to best suit your therapeutic needs. To be your best, you must expect the best. St. Anthony Rehab Services, 794-5000.
You're listening to 1380 KCIM. It's Sports Rewind, and we are live in living color on Facebook right now. So a lot of computer monitors, I assume, being switched off right now for us.
Boy, they're a glutton for punishment if they stay alive. It's bad enough to listen to us.
There's probably some smoke rolling out of a few of them.
Probably.
I would imagine,
All right. Let's talk about the Carroll Kemper boys game coming up tonight. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's talk about how this year's game is going to be different from the past year's games.
Yeah, a lot of kids graduate from Kemper.
Let's start with a big sigh.
From everything I'm hearing, Kemper's going to come in with a new style.
Yes,
all new style of basketball.
Yep, absolutely. They're going to be they're going to be different, especially defensively. Offensively, they're probably not going to shoot as many threes as they've done in the past, but they don't have the size down low that they've had in the past either. So it'll be interesting to kind
Wouldn't
of
that translate to more threes?
Well, you would think, but they don't have probably the same kind of shooters that they've had, with the Parker Badings, the Jared Tegases, and some of the guys that they've had the past few years.
More up-tempo, right?
Yeah, so they're going to look to probably get up and down a little bit more, maybe a little more pressing. Last year they had guys defensively that didn't really get into your shorts besides maybe Blake Baumover. They were good defensive players, but they were more of reading passing lanes, jumping in passing lanes, creating turnovers that way, where I think this year they may just try and get inside your shorts kind of and lock you down a little bit more. So that'll probably be the difference for Kemper. For Carroll, I think it's mainly just having another year under their belt with this system with Randy, more experience. You're going to see some different guys maybe kind of stepping up and being the leaders without Cooper on the team, and without Justin Schrader on the team, Justin Moore on the team. I think you're going to see guys like Boom and Jang and Colby Vinson and guys like those guys step into that leadership role. They might be the team that fires up more threes this year.
I think so. Watching them on the pride scrimmage, it looks to me like they've got it down. They're going to be passing the ball a lot.
Yep.
That's one of the things you're going to see from Coach Beeson. That ball's going to be moving. They're going to look to create if they can. But you saw a lot of nice shots against, I think, a good Arweva team.
That is going to be a good Arweva team.
It looked like Carroll pretty well handled them. I talked to a couple of the Arweva kids afterwards. They said, "Wow, they're good. They're really good." And Arweva thinks they're pretty good. So it should be an interesting. The unknown is Kemper. What's this new style going to be like? I know they ran it a little bit through their JV system last year to get ready for this year, but it's a whole different speed and a whole different tempo. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. I think it should be a pretty fun matchup.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, the coaching comparison. You've got Randy Beeson at Carroll High, who's kind of continuing to build his program there.
Right.
And then you've got Sean Minahan, who's completely changing his program at Kemper after just taking over, a year or two ago.
Yeah, this is, I think, his fourth year as
it fourth year already?
Coach. Yeah.
Wow.
But I like it. I mean, Coach Minahan's changing to his personnel.
Yep.
He coached to what he had. Instead of saying, this is my system, you're going to play within it regardless. He's saying, well, I don't have the guys I had there. We need to look at a different type of system. I like a coach that can adapt that way. Now it's just a matter of, can the kids pick it up fast enough?
Yeah, and Blake Baumover is really the only guy that had valuable minutes, on the varsity last year coming back. So Sean even said in the preseason interviews that, it's going to be last year's JV team that will be the varsity team this year, because they graduated enough kids that, it's the JV team that had a very successful year last year, but it is going to be a different style. And it'll be interesting to see with that changes how quick they can pick it up. Will there be guys out of play sometimes simply because they're still trying to learn this new, mainly the defensive scheme, and stuff. So I think that'll be the interesting part for me to be able to watch tonight. I think Carroll has to go in probably as the favorite. And that might be the first time that they've been the favorite going in. And you want to talk about differences. This might be the first time Carroll's been the favorite going into this game for, at least probably 5 years or more.
Well, and they're bringing back a ton.
Yep.
I mean, they're pretty well loaded from last year. You lose Cooper Ross, you lose Moore, but everybody else is back, and then you keep adding pieces. Lean's there now. And,
yep. I haven't seen him play yet, so
he looked good. He looked
see.
really good. And then you think about it, you got Tyler Edwards, boy, hasn't been able to crack varsity. He's a pretty good little player, great shooter. So that's telling you you've got some shooters. You got talent on there when you got good looking shooters that can't make the floor.
Well, I know Coach Minahan told me that he thinks Carroll has got the ability to be able to make state this year. When they played against him over the summertime, he was really impressed. Now I asked Randy about that, and
Randy will say no.
And Randy's like, it's one game at a time, one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Carroll is not putting expectations outwardly on themselves. They may talk about it inside the locker room, but you're not going to hear them talk about, winning conference, making a run at state or anything outside of that locker room.
If you would have gotten Randy to say that, I went and bought a lottery ticket.
Yeah, because
the end was near.
Yeah, no,
it's funny the way you described Kemper a little while ago. It's like they're maybe not the greatest outside shooters. They don't have a lot of size. It reminds me of the IKM Manning teams of the last few years. They're very athletic. They get up and on the floor, but just nothing to the extremes. You've not got one standout area, but just good, solid athletic team.
Yeah, and part of the reason why they had to change this year too is the injuries. Thomas Evans, a 6'5" kid that's not going to be able to play. You feel bad for him. He's had concussion issues, and his athletic career is now over. So, our thoughts go out to him with that. And then you had Blaze Gunderson, who also would have been 6'5", and a 6'5", 6'5" defensive end, 265, 270 athletic kid would have been pretty nice kids to be able to put down in the post. All of a sudden, those two guys are gone.
You're talking a totally different team, and a different style of play.
Yep. So that's part of what led them to have to kind of change what they're doing.
All right, so that's kind of game coming up tonight. Again, it's at Kemper, so Kemper activity passes will work. Carroll High activity passes will not.
Yes.
Correct. Again, 6 o'clock is the tip-off time. It's on KKRL. Is that right?
It is. You bet.
All right, we'll have it for you. Jeff will have the call on that coming up later on. We'll talk about some games that happened last night and more coming up on KCIM Sports Rewind.
Or prevention and treatment programs, call St. Anthony Rehab Services. Our staff of therapists and trainers provide professional advice on treatment programs to best suit your therapeutic needs. To be your best, you must expect the best. St. Anthony Rehab Services, 794-5000.
It's KCIM Sports Rewind. Once again, a podcast available online at carrollbroadcasting.com. Right now, we're streaming on Facebook, thanks to Johnston Communication. They're tucked back in the corner right now, so you can't see them, but they're there.
Hopefully, do they got the campfire going back there to stay warm?
They're going to break some office furniture and start that fire here pretty quick.
Did John just tell us he wasn't patient?
Yeah, he did.
Now, really?
The one thing I will say, though, is they're sitting right where the fan is blowing, so, Yeah.
If I'm in the studio, that fan is on.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, I'm
kind of surprised the window's not open.
Yeah. Might need to bring a little extra clothing next week with that fan.
Yeah. It's the cold and flu season, but guess what? It's really cold over there. Let's get a look at some of the games happened last night. Jeff, you were out. South Central Calhoun and Audubon meeting up.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that boys game last night was really pretty interesting. Audubon got out to a great start. I really like Caden Smith, the new kid down there. Came in late in the summer. He is an athletic kid, and I tell you what, we thought he was really good at football. He might be a better basketball player than he is football player, and he's outstanding on the football field. But a special kid, I think, going to have a great year. Had 21 for them last night. Really showed the ability to shoot the three. Was able to get to the rim. I like this Audubon team, even though they lost last night. Very athletic. Love to get up and down the floor. They'll defend you. The second quarter really was the difference in the game last night. Give South Central Calhoun a lot of credit. Struggled down 20-17 at the end of the first quarter. Came out in the second quarter and switched over to a man-to-man, kind of locked down Caden a little bit. Audubon struggled to shoot in that quarter, and South Central Calhoun went on a big run and ended up taking a 10-point lead at 41-31 at the halftime. Outscored them pretty well in that third quarter or second quarter. All the other quarters were really about 2 points, 3 points apart from each other, so it was a really balanced game. Other than that, Audubon came out in the second half, made some runs, got it down to fourth twice in the second half, but every time they would do that, Coach Clark would call a timeout, kind of resettle guys. They'd come back out, kind of build it back up to about 8-9 points, and that's where it finished last night at 74-65. I like this South Central Calhoun team, too. Zane Newbaum came off the bench last night. I think they're deeper than what they've been in the past. I think one thing that's going to help, too, Matthew Clark's an outstanding shooter. This young man has got range. He can shoot the basketball. Just didn't shoot a lot last year. Didn't look for his shot. He's a point guard that looks to pass first. Last night came out more aggressive, especially from beyond the arc. I know Jake Petzenhauser, the assistant coach in the postgame interview, said we told him that he's got to shoot more than 2 threes a game this year. He's just too good of a shooter. And last night he came out, ended up knocking down 4 of them, had a really nice night with 19 points, added 5 assists. So this is going to be a much improved South Central Calhoun team. They've got Jacob Nicholson and Jared Burks down inside. I know both of them battled some foul trouble last night, but they're both going to be good, solid players inside. Burks is going to average probably close to a double-double. He's got that ability to go outside. In fact, I think sometimes he's more comfortable, 10 feet away from the basket than he is maybe playing with his back to the basket, but got better at that, and has over his career. But I like this team. They've got shooters. They're going to defend. This is going to be a good basketball team. Man, they put up 74 last night. That's kind of fun. Yeah,
to shoot consistently from the outside is going to take the pressure off of Jared Burks down low.
Absolutely.
And teams are going to key on Burks early in the season until you prove that you can make those 3 points.
The thing about him, though, is he can take you outside and then drive on you. He can really mess with a lot of big guys if that's the case. And his dad will tell you he doesn't like to play with his back to the basket. He'd rather be facing because he thinks he can do more damage. So.
Use his quickness. He's 6'5" and athletic, very, very athletic with long arms. So, absolutely.
Got that from Dad.
Yes.
And Zane Newbaum proved he can do more than kick field goals and extra points.
Absolutely. Zane's a terrific player. 19 points, 8 rebounds last night, was our motor end player of the game. Came off the bench last night and was kind of an instant offense for them a little bit. And he's also really good defensively. He's one of the guys they used to kind of lock down on Caden Smith. So a nice game for him last night. And I like Homer Martz and Brennan Holder coming off the bench, and Cole Corey as well. Those are guys that are going to be able. Cole didn't score much last night, but I think Brennan Holder and especially Homer Martz are guys that are going to be able to score the basketball off the bench for him.
Well, we saw them in football. They're very athletic. I mean, they should translate over real well.
Tell you what, who got up to a great start last night? The East Sac boys.
Oh, yeah.
They just put up some numbers. They were solid each and every quarter. They put together 4 quarters right out of the chute. That's got to be a great omen for them and head coach Todd Bontrager.
Yeah, and they knew the Woodbury Central matchup. They were really good last year, Woodbury Central, so I think it was going to be interesting. This East Sac team's got a potential to be very, very good this year. Got pretty much everything back, replacing Levi Olhausen at the point guard position, but otherwise got pretty much everything back from last year. 23 in the first quarter, 22 in the second, 23 in the third, and then 24 in the fourth quarter last night. So they've done just a terrific job. Inside, outside, they've got everything you need this year.
Levi, to me, last year just added an element of calm.
Yes.
When things got frazzled, they put the ball in his hands. Who's going to take that role this year for ESAC?
It's going to be Camden Schrader, I think, a guy they're going to be looking at. He's never really played that position before, but I think with his ball handling skills and creativity, I think they're going to look at him the way it sounds.
Especially at 6'3". That brings a whole other level of
that changed things.
Difference
absolutely, so it's going to be a bigger point guard than what they've had in the past. So I think he'll get the main shot at it. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like a Derek Ashinger doesn't see some time at the point guard, and maybe even Griff O'Neill kind of sliding into that point guard role, a quarterback, able to see the floor like a quarterback reads a defense.
All right, so anything else standing out to you last night? Sadell, Peyton, Sheridan, Gilbert at Kemper, the girls, we kind of touched on that just a little bit briefly last night. Tough night for Kemper girls, but still, first game out of the chute, got to expect a few nerves and just getting back into the flow of things.
You bet. For the Peyton Cherdan boys, Caleb Fisher had 26 last night, even though they lost by 3 to Sadell. That's not a bad loss. On the girls' side of things, Maddie Jones, another outstanding night last night for South Central Calhoun. They defeated Audubon. Audubon came out a little bit tentative, a little bit nervous going up against a top 10 ranked team. Kind of played it early on. I think they'll be fine once they kind of settle in this year. They've got some talent. Aaliyah Hermanson, a freshman, is going to be outstanding for them. If South Central can continue to get other girls like Emma McKinney and Sally Musselman and Heidi Hammond and Bree Koraleski to score for them, I think they're going to be really good. Peyton Cherdan cruised last night by Sadell. Big night for Tessa Steimel. She went off for 19 last night. If she can knock down the threes, that's going to open things up for Jenna Byers and for Danielle Hoyle inside. That's going to make them a very difficult team to beat in that conference.
This is really one of the first big full nights basketball tonight.
Yes.
Plus you got wrestling. Plus you got swimming on the way tonight. So we're going to have lots of sports to talk about coming up next week. So.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And not a mention of Nebraska or Iowa or Iowa State at the beginning.
Okay. We can talk Husker volleyball or
we might
basketball
have to.
next
I'm
week.
waiting for when is
time.
bowling season, by the way, because you were giving
Their
us updates
women's
last year on
bowling
the
season,
Nebraska women's bowling team. I'm not making this up.
No.
That you actually follow them.
I do. They've won 5 national titles in the last 7 years, and the 2 years that they didn't win the national title, they got beat in the national championship match. So they are an outstanding program.
That is more information than I ever needed to know.
Congratulations to our friend of the show, Kim Davis. Panthers won not only the regular season, but won the conference tournament, and they're playing Pepperdine. On Thursday, I believe, in Madison. So good luck to them in the tournament round.
And Amy Adams going to the University of South Dakota next week. They're in the tournament as well. They're playing Creighton in the first round down in Omaha.
That should be interesting. Creighton's an outstanding team. Top 10 team this year.
All right, look forward to more great bowling information next week. How about that?
I'll bring you what they average for a score.
Don't do
Bring it in. That's KCIM Sports Rewind for this week.
And a fresh attack on the special counsel from the President of the United States. Donald Trump says in a tweet Robert Mueller is doing tremendous damage to the criminal justice system, looking at one side and not the other. It comes hours after word that Mueller's office is accusing